Episode 4 of We Are Who We Are was titled Right Here, Right Now, number 4. With his deployment timeline fast-tracked, Craig spontaneously proposes to his Italian girlfriend, Valentina. Determined to ship him off with a celebration he'll never forget, his friends pool their resources for a Hawaiian-themed wedding that leads to an evening of debauchery. Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again with my weekly recap, breakdown, and review of the latest episode of HBO's We Are Who We Are. We're talking episode number 4, which was very interesting to say the least. We're going to break it all down here in the spoiler discussion. Before we dive into the details, as you all can see on the screen now, make sure you're following me on all my other social media accounts. That way you can stay up to date with what's going on over here at Movie Files. If you are new to this channel, welcome. Definitely subscribe. And while you're at it, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my other We Are Who We Are reviews, other TV reviews, movie reviews, live streams, and all the fun things we do on this very channel. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Helps out the channel, but I also really appreciate it. And in the comments, guys, let me know what you all thought about this episode. What do you think this means for Craig? Maybe not coming home. The relationship between Sam and Fraser. Obviously, the relationship between Fraser and Caitlin. Let me know your pros and cons and just your overall thoughts on this episode, which I thought was very interesting. So let's just kind of get into my overall thoughts before I get into this recap here. I have to say, out of the 4 episodes, this is probably my least favorite thus far. Reasons being, as I'll explain as I do my recap, it was just, I didn't feel like the story moved forward. We didn't really get that much character development. Yes, we got the idea that, Craig's spending time with his friends. We see that Fraser's now in the mix. We see this kind of party sex stuff all over. It was just a lot of stuff going on. Some of the stuff kind of made me feel a little uncomfortable because in my mind, I know these are actors. I know they're acting. I know they range probably between the ages of like 18 to 25 as far as the real life actors in the role. But then in the back of my mind, I'm just like, in the show, they're portraying 14, 16 years old, and some of them might be even older, so it makes it a little even more kind of uncomfortable. So I don't know. I'm still kind of processing the episode. I just watched it about a half an hour ago. But either way, not my favorite. Had some moments, but again, I think this episode really sets up the idea that Greg's going to go off to war, go off to Iraq or whatnot, with the blessing of Sarah, maybe putting these people out there too early, as we saw from Richard, kind of not wanting them to go out because he doesn't feel like they were trained. I think Craig might not come back. He might die. So we'll talk about that later, but let's talk about this recap here. Opens up with a game of paintball. We see that Sam and Danny go straight after Fraser. I mean, they are just letting loose on him with all the paintballs. They literally use all their ammunition on him. And I guess, in this moment, and again, we see this paintball scene. They have this really kind of, I thought was way too drawn out, like slow motion scene of just chaos of them throwing paint on each other in water. I was just like, this is running way too long. I get the idea. I get the show. As you all know, has been watching this weekly, I've been enjoying the show. It's just a day in a life, this summer vacation, military base. These kids are young. They're figuring out who they are. They're figuring out their sexuality, all this stuff. But it was just like this episode to me just kind of just felt like a little overdrawn and just kind of unnecessary, to say the least. And we'll talk about that unnecessariness later on. But, it was in this scene, I'm just thinking to myself, they did this last week where we saw Caitlin and Fraser's relationship kind of move forward off screen. We didn't really see them kind of become friends as we saw in last week's episode. It was just like they're friends now, and we didn't see that growth on screen. It was just more off screen. And the same thing happens in this episode where we see Fraser is now kind of integrated within this group, which I thought had friction last week with Caitlin hanging out with Fraser more and Brittany calling him out, Sam and Danny, all of them being upset that, Fraser's in the mix and that Caitlin's spending more time with him. But now all of a sudden, again, they're teenagers. So I remember being a teenager. It's just like, oh, don't hang out with this person this one day and then now they're your best friends the next day. I get all that, but I wish we would have seen the conversation, seen the invitation for Fraser to come join them to play paintball. It was just like we're just thrust into the situation. It's just like, oh, I would have liked to seen that character moment of them embracing Fraser, even if it is reluctantly and they don't really want him there. I just would have liked to have seen the scene. But as I digress, we kind of move forward. We see Craig. Let me know how you guys feel about Craig and Danny's relationship, because throughout this season, they're clearly best friends. They have this kind of brotherhood. But then in this episode, it was almost kind of like is Craig bisexual in a sense? Maybe so with Daniel, and we see Danny hooking up with one of the strange girls. But I don't know. I felt like they had some type, or at least Danny had some type of feelings towards Greg, and maybe that's reciprocated. I don't know. Let me know what you all think about their relationship. But as we kind of move forward, we see that they're on the bus going back home, I assume, and then we see Craig talking to his girlfriend Valentina and saying that, I'm going to miss you. Let's just marry each other. And they're talking back and forth, and they decide to marry each other, which I'm just like, man, this is teenage love that may not end too well for both parties here. But we see, again, I think that this whole episode and this scene in particular is just Craig knowing he's going off to Iraq, I should say, for 2 years. And things might not be, he might not come back. I think that's what this show is shaping up to be. And I think they're probably going to have this be a storyline where Sarah made that call to send them out early. Again, going back to last week, Richard doesn't think that these soldiers are ready to go to Iraq, but Sarah's just like, we're just moving ahead, pushing forward. So I think I might be completely wrong. He might come back perfectly fine. He might come back, as Brittany alludes to later in the episode about this soldier coming back and having PTSD. He may come back, healthy, but his mind might not be the same because he saw this stuff in Iraq, and he might come back and not be the same guy because he's the heart and soul of this group, right? So either he's going to die in Iraq or he's going to come back not the same. So we'll see where that storyline goes. But, as we kind of move forward, it really isn't that much to break down. We see the crew gather up a bunch of money. They get suits or a suit for Craig. They get a dress for Valentina. They get married. We see Sam is jealous about, Fraser and Caitlin, and Fraser holds, or I should say Caitlin reaches out to hold Fraser's hand to kind of make Sam jealous. Again, they're teenagers. So again, teenagers are just very, very weird, and they're emotional, as we all remember, because we were all teenagers at one point, right? But as we kind of move forward, we see this is where the show, to me, the episode was just kind of like mediocre and just kind of unnecessary, especially all the stuff they were doing. It was really kind of frustrating, if I'm being honest, too, because I hate when any movie or show where they like go into a place that's just really well kept, they're throwing food and drinking and just messing up the house. It was just very frustrating for me and my OCD. But we see them. I don't know where this place was. I think Caitlin said it was some Russian person's house that wasn't home. It was out of town or whatever. They hop over the fence. I mean, they are just wilding the hell out. They're jumping in the pool with no clothes on. They're drinking all the booze. They're eating spaghetti with their hands. I mean, these kids are going to get sick. I'm thinking, this is my old man talking here. They're drinking, they're partying, they're just being completely careless. And again, this is the theme of the show, right? It's just kind of open summer, last summer type of vibes. They're growing, they're learning who they are, they're learning their sexuality. This whole last 20 minutes, 25 minutes of the show is just, you're seeing them drinking, smoking, Danny having sex with a stranger. We see that all the Italian people are just kind of making out with each other. And, we're just seeing a bunch of just craziness. I mean, these kids were just literally acting crazy. Literally, it was a point, I think it was like 30 minutes into the episode, they were playing this music loud. You see Fraser banging his head against the wall. You see them just dancing. I'm like, dude, I don't know if I'm going to continue to watch this episode. This is pissing me off. What is, I don't even know. This isn't even a story. This is literally like they're improvising this whole scene. And again, Luca, I know that's his approach, just kind of free flowing, letting the camera roll and maybe letting his actors just be in the scene and not really act out a scene. So I get all that, but I was just like, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't enjoying this episode, guys, and overall, this wasn't my favorite episode at all. This is like probably my least favorite episode. So as we kind of move forward, we see Fraser and Sam having a moment in the bathroom where Sam recites to him that he knows poetry as well, and recites a line from Kendrick Lamar's song. So I don't know where that's going, because Sam tells Fraser, you don't know how to love, and I do. Basically, there's obviously tension between what's going on with Caitlin. Speaking of Caitlin, we really don't get much from her in this episode besides her telling Fraser not to kiss Soul again, because the Soul girl, the Italian girl who was flirting with Fraser the whole episode, kissed him. He kissed her back, but then Caitlin seemed to be upset with that, and it seems like they're now kind of embracing the idea of them being boyfriend and girlfriend, but they made a pact not to kiss each other last week, and Fraser doesn't want to be called her boyfriend. Kids, right? Teenagers. They're so weird. But, we kind of move forward. We see Brittany making out with Sam. I think she's trying to make either Caitlin jealous or make Fraser jealous. Again, teenagers being teenagers. We see, again, Danny having sex with the stranger girl. He's drinking. He's still, I don't know where his mind is at right now, with his best friend leaving to go off to Iraq. Long story short, we wrap up the episode with Brittany, who, by the way, I thought she had a beautiful voice when she was playing on the piano. We see her singing. And then after we see Craig having sex with his wife now, everyone's drunk. Everyone's passed the hell out, laying on the couch. We see Craig get his stuff and quietly walk out, go to his kind of his way off to Iraq. And, we see Sarah shake his hand, do the salute, and I don't know, guys. Like I said, this episode didn't really push the narrative forward. I think this is more of a setup episode, a hurrah, a congratulations, a goodbye, potentially, to the Craig character. Because, again, like I said, he either is going to die in Iraq. We'll see what comes of that. And obviously, if he dies, there's going to be a lot of tension between why Sarah let them go off early and then the kids hating Fraser, and it's going to be a whole thing potentially. Or he's going to come back, like Brittany said, there was a soldier that came back, hit his wife with a lamp and busted her face all open. So maybe they're pointing towards Craig coming back and not being the same person that they know and love. So it can go one of those two ways, or it can just be he comes back. Well, it's going to be 2 years, so we don't know what's going to happen, right? I don't think this show is going to have a 2-year flash forward type of thing. Who knows? Maybe they will. Maybe we'll never see Craig again, and it's just a storyline we won't ever address again. So who knows? Like I said, overall, I wasn't the biggest fan of this episode. Again, just the idea, just seeing these kids just being relentless and just messing up that person's house and just drinking, smoking, having sex, and unprotected sex. It looked like it was just like. I wasn't feeling the episode, man. Again, I get the idea of what Luca's doing. This is their lives. He's not, making this traditional story. We know overseas they have a very different perception. And it's not because I'm uncomfortable about sex and drugs. It's just like it's a very taboo thing in America to see these scenes. So it wasn't that got me kind of uncomfortable. It was just like, I don't know, these scenes just kind of don't feel necessary. That's really what it boiled down to. But that's just my thoughts. I'm still loving the show, even though I didn't love this episode. I'm excited to see where it goes next week. Hopefully we go back to a actual kind of storyline and character development. But let me know you guys' thoughts in the comments below. Your pros, your cons. What do you think about Craig coming back, not coming back, and what this means for Sarah, sending them off early, the relationship between Sam and, Brittany, and obviously Fraser and Soul and Fraser and Caitlin, all the relationships. Let me know what you all thought of this episode and what you hope to see moving forward. So as always, make sure to like, share, comment below. If you haven't already, subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss any of my We Are Who We Are, Lovecraft Country, The Third Day, and all the other TV shows I cover, movies I cover, live streams, all the fun things we do on this very channel. Hope you all are having a fantastic day. Thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you on the next one.